Hi, welcome to Revenue Marketing Television, the CMO Insights series. I'm your host, Jeff Pedowitz, President and CEO of the Pedowitz Group. Today as our guest, we have Peter Smails, who is Chief Marketing Officer at Imanis Data. Peter, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Looking forward to the discussion.
Yeah, so data, we don't hear about that at all, right? No one's talking about data.
It's very boring. Very boring.
So, what prompted the entrepreneurs at Imanis to say, the world needs another data company, and we're going to do it better than everybody else? Because you guys are even in Series B now. You're even past that point. You're in Series B. Tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, cool. So to your point, everybody knows about data. Everybody knows about storage and data is the new lifeblood of organizations and all this type of stuff. There are lots of vendors out in the marketplace sort of dealing with what we would call the traditional data management space. So if I sort of take a small step back, look at IT overall. People have essentially built their traditional IT infrastructure within the four walls of a data center, and they have built it typically using what we would sort of like a monolith application stack. You had Oracle at the bottom, you had Oracle in the middle, you had Oracle at the top. Might have been SAP, could have been Teradata, lots of different things. But the vast majority of sort of traditional legacy-based applications, that's what the world looked like. What has happened, as everyone knows, over the last really 3 years, frankly, is that there's been this rapid shift. It's a topic unto itself, but the net of it is that the cloud has changed everything. What organizations sort of have realized is that this notion of lift and shift to the cloud isn't solving the underlying fundamental problem of how you take advantage of hybrid cloud and how you take advantage of your data. They have realized that if they want to be agile, if they want to be able to take advantage of hybrid cloud infrastructure, they're going to re-architect that monolithic stack. And they're going to be much more oriented microservices-based things. So there's much more agility and flexibility and those types of things. That has led to a proliferation of new database platforms and file systems, specifically around Hadoop and NoSQL. So to answer your question specifically, yes, we're a data management company, but our shtick, our unique value is that we're going after the blue ocean of data management for Hadoop and NoSQL. And the timing is interesting now because those platforms have really kind of reached that tipping point of mainstream adoption for business critical apps. So that's kind of that's the why we're doing what we're doing and why it's a pretty cool market.
That's fascinating. So as you come into market, I'm sure you have many challenges that startup companies have on Series B. Are there some things that are unique to you within Imanis, and then you specifically within marketing?
The relative to the I think we saw. Let me start with the some of the similarities. Like, yes, you mentioned we're a Series B company, and so the challenge for us, like any small company, is how do you rise above the noise? How do you sort of separate yourself, and how do you essentially, we're creating a market. What's unique, I'd say, about what we're doing. So the whole notion of having to create a market is tough for any small organization. That's anybody who solves that challenge once and for all will be very, very wealthy. But what's interesting for us is that it's a new market, but it is incremental, if you will. It's N+1. And what I mean by that is the same people that are the same organizations that have been playing in the legacy space are the ones that are rapidly moving to this new technology, number one. And number two is the folks that are within those organizations are reasonably easy to identify. It's like, who are the folks doing Hadoop and NoSQL? It's like, well, I don't want to say it's reasonably easy, but it's a fun challenge to sort of track down and find all the people within large enterprises that are interested in Hadoop and NoSQL. And then it becomes sort of this, navigational challenge of finding out where they are in their maturity and finding out sort of, are they running in production? How mature are they? How connected are they with the traditional IT group? So there's a lot of market timing dynamics, but I think ultimately the main challenge for us is, like I said, it's not market timing, because I think the market is good. I think it is just driving awareness. It's making sure that people understand this is a problem and that there are solutions out there. One is just helping organizations know they have a problem. That has been really interesting to watch, because that was, even 2 years ago, that was a much harder problem. It was much more nuanced. Now it's, you doing anything, according to recent metrics.
So then given that you're still a startup relatively, given that it's a crowded space within data, and there's all these channels and things available, how do you go about doing that? How do you create a market? How do you kind of surgically cut through and create awareness so to start driving demand for your product?
Yep. Great question. It's two things you just triggered. One is it's a crowded market in the traditional space. It's actually a very blue ocean on this space, which if you'd asked me that a year ago, I'd say was a bigger challenge. What's been great over the last really 6 months is that some of the legacy vendors have now come to realize that this is actually a large growth opportunity for them. So we're finally getting some help, from some of the larger traditional vendors, some of the large market share traditional data management vendors. This is the Veritaases of the world, the Commvaults of the world. Some of the names, all the names people know, they're starting to weigh in. But how we have gone about doing it has really been a couplefold. Number one is our go-to-market is largely direct to date. And it has largely been sort of our selling motion has been very much of a mix of, we rely heavily on inside sales, and sort of an inside sales, to a regional sales rep model. And again, we're small, but the surgical part comes about because I mentioned a couple minutes ago that what we're looking for is actually, we're looking for needles in the haystack, but we know what the needles look like. So it's essentially, we're not calling on the backup admins. We're not calling on the traditional personas. So what we've really cut our teeth on doing is we're calling on DBAs. We're calling on cloud architects. We're calling on system architects. So we've defined what we call an ICP. So we've defined our ideal customer profile, and that's customer size. We don't really do a whole lot of segmentation because honestly, it's a horizontal problem right now across multiple, different
So
verticals.
are you really going more for the influence play? Because at DBA, right, system admin is not going to have budget to invest in your platform, but they can certainly say, hey, look, we should look at these guys.
That's a great question. So hold that for just 2 secs. You find those because it's a brilliant question. You find those people, and they're not, again, just using through list acquisition, through trade shows, through doing very data source specific things. So like we go to events, we don't go to VMworld. We'll go to very data source specific shows. DataSex has an annual event. Couchbase has an annual event. MongoDB has an annual event. So you're able to identify the places to go to find those people. So getting that list of people isn't, our ICP is not that hard to define. The work then comes in with what you just said about influence, because what has traditionally been the case, to your point, is that we're calling on the technology influencer. So it has been an influence play. What has been exciting for us to see over the last, again, I've been at this, I can come back to this, but I've been at this for about 2.5 years through 2 companies, the first of which we sold. And I joined Imanis because I see the opportunity as being so significant that I want to just keep driving this stuff. But we can come back to that in a few minutes. But what I was going to say was what's been interesting to see unfold, gets into a whole persona discussion. 18 months ago, DBA, system architect, cloud architect, those types of folks, be pure influence play. So you could make lots of headway. Oh, yes, definitely an opportunity. And then you'd get stalled potentially at where's the money coming from? Who's the actual financial buyer? Who's going to make that decision? There's an entire organizational evolution happening between sort of for lack of a better term, call them DevOps. It's not just DevOps, but sort of that whole new bucket of personas and the evolution and sort of convergence of the new group, the other guys, as we like to joke about, and the traditional IT teams. So what we're now seeing is that they've gone from pure influencer to either A, they may have their own budget within the line of business because they don't need core IT to deploy this, or B, core IT has enough of a mandate now that they're recognizing they need remediation. So that has served us well. We've learned how to sell to these influencers because it's different than selling to a backup admin.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just totally different mindset. It's not a storage-centric play. It's not a network-centric play. It's an application-centric play. It's a data-centric play. And that's a different conversation. So we've gotten really good at that. And now what is sort of helping with the wind at our backs is the convergence of sort of those folks having direct influence and or budget, or that convergence with traditional IT. Let me pause. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, but it's interesting because in a lot of marketing strategies, influencer is but one, right? But then you're trying to go for that whole buying center. So but I mean, given where you're starting, that makes a lot of sense. So tell me a little bit more than how you're bringing the strategy to the execution, process-wise, personnel, systems. How are you actually making the dream come alive, so to speak?
Yeah, no, cool. We're small, but I'm a big believer in core systems. You've got like garbage in, garbage out type of thing. So or I'll come back to the timing, but essentially from an infrastructure standpoint, we don't have a ton of infrastructure, but we're a Salesforce house. Okay, so we've got Salesforce as our baseline sales tool. We're a Marketo house, so we basically got Marketo on the back end. And again, we've put a lot of time and energy into building process around sort of we take our ICP, our ideal customer profiles, we get those leads and so forth from a systemic standpoint. Those go into the Marketo thing for dedupe, et cetera, and then we build our database out, our ability to do mailers and to sort of drive meeting engagement that way. But then what we do in terms of the engagement with Salesforce is we take the leads that we're generating, we identify them based upon lead source, okay, and then we create what we call fuel lines. And essentially those fuel lines then provide some context. As I said, we're very reliant upon the SDR. So we're a very big SDR shop. I mean, we're small, we've got a couple SDRs, but it's very much, okay, we've gotten that first level of qualification from the ICP. Now we've just got to really be aggressive in terms of dialing and getting connected with these folks, whether it's through events that we run face-to-face, belly-to-belly, or whether it's just driving the SDRs to get meetings for the reps, to get folks on the phone. And so a lot of it is just that fundamental legwork of getting it in, getting the fuel lines sorted out, having the SDRs work through those fuel lines, which give them the sort of the insider context as to the conversations that they need to have with the people based upon where they came from. So that's part A, and then we've got a whole lead scoring system we use on the back end.
Do you manage the SDRs, or is that over on the sales side?
Yeah, no, I own the SDR team, and again, because we're a small organization, we're super tight. So myself and the head of sales are connected at the hip. We're doing weekly pipeline calls. We do as part of the pipeline call, we do the SDR review of any meetings that were held that week. What were the outcome of those meetings, so everybody has context. Then what were the meetings that were scheduled for that week, the new meetings that were scheduled that week, and then review the upcoming meetings for that week. So that we're small enough that we're not having 50 meetings a week kind of thing. So we're small enough that we can literally just go through all those meetings. And one of the benefits of being small is you can essentially operate that way. But that said, we're absolutely built for scale. So what I'm happy about is our data's clean. The automation between Marketo and Salesforce is clean. We use things like Marketo Sales Insight on the back end, so you can do some smart things around, the folks that are coming to visit your site, and you can intelligently sort of gain information about who's active, on your site and so forth, so you can leverage that. So that's kind of on the Marketo and Salesforce side. From this is partly systems, but from a lead gen standpoint, we take our SEO very seriously. We spend strategically around SEM. We do stuff around Google AdWords. An inbound lead is obviously the best lead. So, again, being in the blue ocean, we go pretty specifically after folks that are doing Hadoop and NoSQL. So there are only so many people from a vendor standpoint, doing Hadoop and NoSQL. So our inbounds actually, it won't give you the exact percentage, but our inbounds actually represent a material percentage of our lead gen, because it's a small enough, blue enough ocean that we can reasonably cost effectively drive a fair amount of awareness, if you will, and demand.
So, finish this question. A year from now, my team will.
A year from now, when I look back at what the team, so if the team today is essentially a small team, sort of a small team of SDRs, a small team of myself and a couple of other folks that are doing kind of all the programs and all the underlying legwork. We obviously get a fair amount of support from some contractors, but it really has been get the ICP defined, get the SDRs rolling, drive some primarily direct-based activities, drive the SEO, SEM type of thing. A year from now, we will be much more partner-centric. So our go-to-market, what's going to evolve this year is that, one of the mistakes I made in my past that I sort of learned from was I would argue in my last company, we probably invested too much in channel. And the problem with that model is that and I love channel partners, so this is going to come out wrong, but basically they're more laggard than leader, if you will, in the sense that channel is best when there isn't a huge lift in terms of, well, the first thing I need to do is educate you on the market that we're going after. And then I need to educate you on how to sell my solution. The more sort of the market is coming to them, the more mature the market is, the more traction you're going to get from a channel partner standpoint. So the market has matured to the point now that just organically through our work with ourselves and some of our strategic partners, like the Cohesities of the world, some of the legacy backup vendors or HCI vendors that are looking for support with Hadoop and NoSQL, we're starting to organically partner with those orgs. That brings a whole lot of interest from the channel side. So I think a year from now, my team will be heavily focused on continuing to support the direct selling model, but we will also be much more heavily invested in partner, both from a channel standpoint, because that is becoming, that is mature. And then the second piece will also be from a technology partner standpoint, and that's folks like AWS, for example, because lots of folks run Hadoop and NoSQL in the cloud. They need data protection. It would be the data source vendors like the DataStacks, the Couchbases, and so forth, because they obviously need to have the enterprise data management capabilities that we provide so their customers can be running in production. And then it's folks like I said, it could be a Cohesity. It could be some of the folks that play in the backup space, but don't specifically play in the world of Hadoop and NoSQL. So there's a nice synergy there.
Okay. Good stuff. Well, I'm definitely going to be tracking you for one.
Good. Okay, I got one more. All right, cool. I'll add you to. You don't fit our ICP, but that's okay.
Yeah.
We'll keep you in the loop. Don't worry.
If I was a DBA back in the day, that maybe that might do it.
You may get an email or a call from us.
All right. There you go. I'm gonna look for that mailer. But hey, Peter, thanks a lot. Best of luck to you and the team over at Imanis, and thank you for being on the program today.
I really appreciate your time and look forward to continuing the conversation. Thank you.
You bet.